in a highly regulated place like a church or a school, stuff happens. Do I think these photographers could be doing this stuff for sicko reasons? Absolutely. And it'd be a lot easier to get away with it. And then you got to start thinking about those parents and all that stuff. And awful. Yeah, I was going to do a follow-up to it, but the problem was it was just a video. Remember that episode I did a long time ago that, I think it was in Wisconsin, there was the house that the neighbors were saying people were being trafficked out of, and they called the police. And the police showed up, and like people were leaving the house, and then the house burned down, and the cops are like, well, sorry, there's no evidence there. That was a long time ago I did that episode. I recently came across the video on Twitter. I think I retweeted it. It's video from that house. And the video shows, again, we don't have the context, but the video shows a mob of people surrounding the house yelling, and there are uniformed police officers escorting children out of the house into a van, and then after that, it burns down. So were they taking them into custody, or were they taking them to the next client? Like, it's questions like that that always make you go, what's really going on, right? We all know that this type of gross stuff, and again, I do want to stop talking about it. I hate this topic, and that's why I don't talk about it a lot on the show. We do know this stuff happens between families and neighbors and stuff like that. It's unfortunately common. And then when you make these allegations of these high-level groups that are doing it, people go, well, no, it'll happen in your neighborhood. It'll happen with, like, the lunch lady or the neighbor or the dad or whatever, but there's no way that it's happening on a federal level, even though they're constantly breaking up these rings, right? It seems to be one every 20 years. You find this huge ring that's operating out of DC or operating out of some other major city, and they shut it down, and a couple people go to jail and quickly get rushed away. We know this is happening at the high level, and it just is. People don't stop becoming sickos because they become powerful. They become more sick. But yeah, let's take a look here. Let's see if there's any questions that aren't going to make me talk about such a disgusting topic. Yeah, I don't. Corey Dennis said they just Googled Jordan Matter, and now they feel like they're on a watch list. They're like, don't read off my name. So I do not recommend Googling that. I wasn't going to. There will be times people give me suggestions like that. And again, Jonathan, thank you for the suggestion, but I'm just, I don't want to put that stuff in my head, let alone have it on my feet. So yeah, Jordan Matter. Yeah, and you know, the thing is, he could probably, you know what, I'm done talking about this stuff. It really grosses me out. But yeah, I hope you guys understand. And that, like, I'll leave stuff out at certain times on the show. I try not to go into too deep detail when we talk about some things, but yeah, pretty gross. Let's see here. Church-going Mule has an interesting comment. He goes, you know, people can barely tell the difference between a dog and a coyote footprint. Could a normal person tell the difference between a bear and a Bigfoot footprint? And I'd say no. Like, I could probably... Well, I think the Bigfoot supposedly looks like a human foot, but it's so easily faked. Bigfoot prints are easily faked. You could go out and make one. And today, it's so funny because growing up, I thought Bigfoot was super lame. I really did think Bigfoot was super lame. It's not until I moved up to the Pacific Northwest, where he's everywhere. Literally, you go to Taco Bell and he's ordering his Bigfoot for you. But all the other stuff Bigfoot can do. Teleport, dimensional travel, things like that. That's what I'm into. Mamu Mocho asks if I can get my autograph. There is a way to get my autograph. If you join the Patreon, you get a letter from me. I'm sure I'll do autographs at some point. It would seem self-indulgent to just mail out an autograph. But yeah, if you join the Patreon, get one of these fancy Dr. Pilot stickers. Here it says monkeys. You don't get the hard drive. You don't get my backup. These are all my episodes. I got a couple of hard drives that are just episodes of Dead Rap Radio, but yeah. Well, hey Amalia, we'll get autographs at some point. We'll figure it out at some point. But and Mamu Mocha, thank you. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Kill Yeaton's fan since episode 200 and still loving it. Really, really appreciate that. It's funny because at a certain point I do think like those episodes, like I'll look up an episode and I'm like, what, I recorded that as like episode 169. It's weird to think there's so many episodes. Allison, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Rudy, yes, you can send me chocolate. I'm on a different type of keto now. I just don't eat a lot of carbs at all. It's not working. It's not working. I need to go back onto keto. Allison, thank you so much too for the donation as well. Asking to be my girlfriend. You've listened to every episode. That it would take more than listening to every episode to be my girlfriend, unfortunately. But you do seem like a great person. You didn't give me $5, so you seem like a great person. No, but thank you. I'm glad that you are a fan. But yeah, what we were talking about. Sorry, I didn't expect to get a relationship proposal. Oh yeah, keto. Now I gotta figure out something. Because since I came back from vacation, I swear, like if I come in contact with a piece of dough, I automatically put on a couple of pounds. Sephora Ari asked, has I done an episode about hypnosis? I did. It's actually one of those episodes that was pretty eye-opening for me. But then it also, Sephora goes on to say that they found some weird PSA commercials. Yeah, send them over to me that are warning about human trafficking, hypnosis. That's interesting. That episode of hypnosis, like I always thought it was just a goofy parlor trick. And the episode was, no, it's not. And the one thing I took away from that episode was, it's so fascinating. You cannot use this is actually what they treat people, because I just thought it was a joke. I thought hypnosis was made up. I thought even the people who knew hypnosis, they knew it was made up. Apparently, you cannot treat something via hypnosis what you couldn't treat them in real life. So if I don't know how to get someone to stop smoking, I cannot hypnotize them to get them to stop smoking. If I do know how to get someone to stop smoking, I can use hypnotism as a tool. But yeah, that was a creepy episode. I don't remember which episode that was, but like people were dying, people were going crazy. Not while I was making the episode, but the stories in the episode, they were pretty dark. They were pretty dark. Let's see here. Yeah, Corey Dennis saying if thought Bigfoot was pretty lame. Yeah, that was kind of my takeaway from that, right? Let's see here. Sayla says the Airbus crash. I'm not familiar with that. That's a plane crash in New Zealand. It's funny how much of my day is just copying, pasting stuff into Google and being like, oh, that sounds weird. Mount Erebus disaster. Oh, a plane crashed into a mountain. Did they eat each other? I'm curious. Yeah, the disasters. I like covering disasters, actually. I don't do many of them. Nuclear Glue said they are walking through the forest thinking about the podcast. Appreciate that. How nothing creepy happens in their area, and then they found a QR code taped to a tree. I think QR codes are a conspiracy theory in and of themselves, but did you scan it? That would be pretty interesting. Cantillions, happy Thanksgiving, Gerardo. Happy Thanksgiving. Cantillions question, do you think the Nephilim, the strange creatures that are normally seen during a drug trip, and paranormal beings may be connected somehow? That's a super interesting question, honestly. And I think that kind of goes to a thing like, how much do you think this stuff is interconnected? I think there is like this idea of this Venn diagram, right, where you have, you guys know what a Venn diagram is. I don't know why I do that, but let's say we have religious entities like demons and jinn, angels, all this stuff up here. And down here you have ghosts. And over here you might have something that's more corporeal, like a goblin or a ghoul or things like that. And I think that I drew these bubbles pretty connected, but I don't think they are. I think that demons are really never confused with imps or ghouls or goblins or anything like that. A vampire may have some demonic aspect to it. Or a witch may be, worshiping Satan. But I would say, here's my personal, I know, because when I do episodes, sometimes I'll have kind of endings that kind of let's put on a conspiracy cap. So sometimes it can become blurry what I actually think. But I think for the most part, all of these entities are have their own individual agendas. I don't even think a demon and a djinn are necessarily related. I think that would be a fallen angel versus the smokeless fire. I think they're two different entities, and I would say like the Clockwork Elves from a DMT trip are completely different than the gremlins who were taking stuff apart during World War II. So I would say that they might be connected in the sense that they're not of our world, but I don't think the Nephilim, the Clockwork Elves, or the Standard Ghosts, I don't think they have much in common other than the fact that they all interact with. That's just my theory, though. Because if you thought that they were all just one thing, like if the aliens who land and the Nephilim and all these other things were connected, all their agendas always seem to be different. Just the Guy, thank you so much for the donation. Once again, another request to be my girlfriend. I will not be able to be your girlfriend. Wait, you wanted to be my girlfriend. The point, oh, no, guy friend. I read that wrong. We can have a platonic guy friendship, whether or not you donate money for that one. But no, I appreciate that. And then you will get a ride in the Carbonocopter, and then Helena. I'm so bad with names. I was right. Luis emailed me later after that first episode came out and goes, "Hey, dude, that's not how you pronounce my name. You got it right the second time." And I was like, "That's what I thought." Helena. Damn it. We're gonna get you in the Carbonocopter as well, and that appears to be some sort of dancing lemon. That's pretty adorable. Blowing me kisses. I don't know. I mean, I didn't get any getting kisses blown at me during those other proposals. That might be the difference. T-Man asks, what do I think of mediums and psychics? I think most Feneline's thing was, my first reaction to the plane crashes was, did they eat each other? T-Mad, I think most of them are fraudulent. I do believe that there are mediums and psychics, and I do believe, because I'll talk about like feeling people's energy, and I've mentioned in shows, I can walk into a house and tell you how good your marriage is. So I do believe in that on a certain level. But I think most of the people who are charging money for it, most of them are frauds. Not all of them. Not all of them. It's one of those things, like if you might actually have a gift at being a contractor, and you may have like a gift of leadership and getting all these people organized to build this house, but you can also just be really bad at it and just kind of be lazy and have some connections. And you're also a contractor. You also have the licensing and all this stuff, but you're not any good at it. But I guess that's different because at the end of the day, there's still two houses built. But I think mediums and psychics, they really can be rip-offs. They really definitely can be rip-offs. Hunter, thank you. I'm glad that you have been enjoying the show. I'm glad that it's been keeping you going. It's funny because Rudy, Jazz, they're also from Switzerland. They are also complaining that it was not super spooky up there. And you get that a lot. I see, we've had a couple comments here saying that it's not spooky enough. It's finding it. It really is finding those weird paths to go down and all of that stuff. But they're there somewhere. I do need to send out more Patreon stickers as well. Jonathan was mentioning that. Yeah, Cantillions, I thought QR codes are a conspiracy because this is the problem, and this is actually a good idea of conspiracy theories, is that I don't know what I don't know. When I look at a QR code, I don't even think I think I've banned them from my house. If I see one, I run them out with a pitchfork. I literally don't have any QR codes in here. I look at that and I go, how can that code be so randomized that they'll never run out of variations of it? That's impossible. Like, you can scan a QR code and it'll go doo-doo-doo, and it'll be like, Crush orange soda is the best. And I'm like, what? How do they have that figured out? How do they have that figured out? So I just have an issue with QR codes in general. I think they're a lie. But again, I also have a hard time believing that records work the way they do. I don't understand how you can take a piece of wax and melt bumps in it and then put a needle on it and it sings. I don't understand how that works. And even if it does work, apparently, according to science, how is it that I'm making records at a factory and I'm making Bruno Mars albums, and then one day I get an album from this new singer named Tabitha or whatever. Do, 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 do. What are you telling me that in all the times we've made albums, we haven't had the same dots in the same place? How come it sounds different when Tabitha's? You're like, Chase, here's the thing, I don't know how records are made. And I could easily look up and see how they're made, but it's the little bumps. So how is Tabitha's album in the year 3000? This is in the future now. How is that? Isn't there a chance that eventually you run out of space, you run out of different bumps? You run out. There's only so many bumps you can put on a record. Now, you could say, Jason, you obviously know nothing about how records are made. It's not like that. It's like this. How does it go? Does the sound go into? Jason, you're making it sound like it's the Hellraiser box. It's just a piece of wax that has little bumps on it, but does the sound go in it? I don't know. Aka Rockefeller Pompidou has said they're my biggest fan, and they asked if they could be my accountant. Probably not. I have no money to account for, actually. I've made some money today, but the IRS probably would hope that I would get an account at some point. Let's see. Jonathan, Jason, what do you think about the idea that broadcast television manipulates the color aspects to control your mind? I don't know about that. I have heard there's actually a conspiracy theory I heard back when I was in college doing journalism courses. They say televisions are designed when you first buy a television set. I think it's different now with the energy saver thing on it, but when you buy a television set and the colors are scaled way high up to make everything look like a cartoon, because people don't want to watch reality. When they watch the news, when they watch sports, they want it to watch really colorful things because it looks unreal. It's just like a subtle thing. And then also another thing we learned in that journalism school was that news program, like the nightly news, is designed to be a family. That's why you normally have a man and a woman as the host. And then you'll have like a sister and two brothers. It'll be like the sports guy, the weather girl, and then the other dude who's just doing like local. And this was back, I was in college in the 90s. They said they have tried having two male anchors at night, and they've tried having two women anchors at night. They've even tried having three anchors at night, like a man and two women. They go, it never does as well as when you have a man and a woman, and then you have a mixture of the people on the site. They go, race did not matter. Race didn't matter at all, but they said it's a family thing. It simulates a family. So much of television is simulating friends and family. I come home, one of the first things I do is turn on YouTube, just so there's noise in the house as I'm kind of putting around, taking off my jacket and all of that stuff. So yeah, television does a lot. Television does a lot. There was that one episode I did where the guy said, television meant tell a vision. And it was talking about how it was, and I go, well, it used to be called radio, bro. Like, you do this for radio, do this for, like, you could always pick one word and fiddle around with it. But before television, there was radio, and people, radio. Why does this even make sense? Let's see here. Rudy Jess says, I'm surprised people haven't come up with more conspiracy theories about gender dysphoria, aside from their turning the children trans. That is another one that, that's an interesting one, whether or not the conspiracy theories pop up on that. Because you're right, you don't have big ones outside of stuff like that, like the reading library, or maybe even Alex Jones about the chemical in the water. You don't get a lot about that. I think conspiracy theorists, that's another Venn diagram. It's what sells and what scares. If we're talking about conspiracy theorists, because there are a lot of conspiracy theorists, people honestly believe the nonsense they're saying. I don't think Hans is running a grift. I think Hans actually believes monkeys don't exist. I really, really do. So, but there are other people who are just looking for the next big thing, like the Travis Scott thing. I remember I got a couple comments. I don't know if it was on my TikTok or on my YouTube, saying that I was exploiting the Travis Scott tragedy, and I was like, I didn't respond to any of that, but I thought, not really. I mean, one, it wasn't this huge video for me. I do videos like that all the time, but I wanted to get in on the ground floor just because I figured it was going to get wacky. It got wackier than I thought. People started talking about that stuff in the mainstream news. It was going on for a while. Let's see here. And then I wanted to give a shout out. I know I'm falling behind here, but Salih Grasanin, thank you so much for that donation. Yes, and they were mentioning the CERN ceremony. Yeah, that was weird. See, that was one of the. There's a lot of stuff that I come across in the research. If you don't know what that is, that's a pretty famous thing when they were building the CERN laboratory. There's a couple things that came out of this. They were building the CERN laboratory, and there was the satanic sacrifice that supposedly took place outside of CERN. People don't know if that's true or if that was just it probably was a gimmick. Actually, Salia was specifically talking about they built this rail system, and a couple of people had died during the rail system, as people do during these mass transit projects. There's a video of there's just this weird ceremony as they're opening. Man, dude, rich people are weird, right? Like when you get that wealthy, you're like, oh, I just want to watch high art. I just want to watch some kid walking around holding a stick for 20 minutes, and that's art. And so whenever we see a bunch of rich people sit around and watch really boring trapeze stuff, because that's what it was. It was people in trapeze, trampoline. It wasn't trampolines, but it was just this weird high art, highfalutin stuff. So when a normal person watches that, we go, that's dumb, and we start to notice weird symbols in it. Now it is art, and art is based on symbols, and it does look weird. But here's the thing: I may not ever appreciate Marina Abramovich's art. We did that episode on her, and I do think it was cool. She drove that car around in a museum that was spraying oil everywhere. But all of her other stuff is just super highfalutin art. And so that's what the CERN thing was. My thing with the CERN and the railway systems, this is what we always do. In the moment, we were watching that video footage of all of these rich and powerful people underneath the ground in Switzerland. And they're putting on this big performance art thing with these trampolines. Not trampolines, trapeze artists, and people are walking around, and there was 7 people that walking around in suits, and that was to symbolize the 7 souls who died building the mine and all this stuff. And then the conspiracy theories at the time was oh, this is worshiping the CERN, that this is going to have some effect, and eventually demons are going to take over the whole world. And nothing's happened. So whenever we look at these events, these symbolic events, the question always is, and we've all seen this, in the short term, people are this is it, this is the end of the world, and then it's now 8 years later. So if it was some sort of symbolic magic ceremony, I don't really know what came out of it. It is weird, and I think rich people art is weird, and I don't know why. The stuff, if you go pay $60 to go see a Broadway comedy, I can guarantee you it is as dumb as Two Broke Girls or The Big Bang Theory or any other piece of garbage out there. I've seen so much theater comedy, and it's all bad. I've seen one play that was funny. Most of them are unwatchable, and I don't understand why people. I don't understand why rich people have such bad taste in art. But yeah, so it was a long thing, but yeah, I think that's what it is. I think they just like weird art, and not all the time. There are a lot of weird, rich, powerful people. That was my thing. So when I saw that footage of that thing, I thought, oh, this might be legit, but nothing's really ever come of it or anything like that. Let's see here. Happy Thanksgiving, Andrew. Happy Thanksgiving, Andrew. Thank you. Let's see. Joe Logan asks, does that make you our dad? No, I'm not your. When we're talking about the nightly news, no, I am more of the crazy neighbor. I'll take that. I'll take the crazy neighbor or your crazy coworker, just walking by, hanging out with you. Yeah, Killy Eden, older brother telling me stories. I think that fits as well, because I've talked about that before. My older brother used to tell me urban legends all the time and scare me to death. Jonathan, another question, and I think this question kind of goes to what Exelius was saying as well, talking about humanity being molded. And really, what do I think of grand overarching conspiracy theories where the elements of elite spookiness and high strangeness are tied together by some overarching theme? I've talked about this a lot on the show. I believe, and this is where people go, oh, dude, you're a shill. You don't believe in like the biggest conspiracy theory. I don't believe that there is a Illuminati. I believe that there are several groups, possibly hundreds of these groups, and I'm sure more than one of them use the name Illuminati, and they are each trying to create their version of the world. And that's why we see stuff that doesn't really make sense. A lot of people go, it's just one group, and the reason why World War II happened was they were on both sides. They're on both sides, so they wanted D-Day to happen, but then they wanted the Battle of the Bulge to go this way, but then it just doesn't make any sense. It makes more sense to do what Hans says and be like, oh, it never happened, it was all crisis actors, than to think that one group, because if that was the case, then World War II would have never ended. We would have been in a constant state of warfare for the past 70 years. If that was their goal, if their goal was the subjugation and enslavement of humanity, why do they give us so much peace? Why do they give us so much time where we're not that? They could have went straight from, this is what I remember back when 9/11 happened. I remember this was one of the things that my arguments against it being an inside job. I go, dude, if this was an inside job, if this wasn't something that an outside group had to plan for months, planes would be falling out of the sky every 2 weeks. And we would become so exhausted. We would become so exhausted by the ever-present threat of terrorism, we would have said, Bush, do whatever. If you got to rip up the Constitution, I just can't have another plane fall out of the sky. There were more terrorist attacks in Britain, just pound for pound, no pun intended. As I'm laughing, the Irish were just laying waste. The pubs just caught my whole childhood. That was the news. Another pub got blown up. And it was a constant, that's how terrorist groups work. It was a constant state of war. So the British were like, whatever. But then also it would galvanize people, and they'd go fight more in Northern Ireland. But if it was one group, they would have won already. They 100% would have won already. But the fact that we have the Koch brothers on one side and George Soros on the other side, we have high-level Republican conservative donors and high-level Democratic left-wing donors. You could say, oh no, they all work together, and they're just wasting their money. And here's the thing. I would have bought that argument 20 years ago. You could have said, no, Jason, we're in the final days, and they're all teamed up, and they're just making it look like they're divided and stuff like that. Why hasn't it happened yet? That's always my question. Why haven't they made their move yet? The technology is there. If you want to enslave people, that's why. So I believe, and people get upset when I say this, that there's multiple groups. And I don't know why they get upset when I say that. I don't know if it's because I'm disagreeing with the initial theory, or I think when I say there's multiple groups, that means that the people that you like and I like may also not have our best interest at heart, right? I think that you just have all these other groups, and it's so weird to me that people go, the music industry is controlled by the Illuminati, but I'm going to sit and listen to Shania Twain. You can't have it both ways. But you can in my world, where you don't have one single group controlling Hollywood. You have maybe 3 or 4. They're all vying for control. They want their vision. So that's my thing. I do think there are high-level conspiracy theories, but I think there are people to stop them. And not stop them in a G.I. Joe Cobra sort of way. They want to stop Group A, so Group B can take over the world. Rudy Jazz asked, can I rank the top 3 lamest serial killers? That is an awesome question. First off, John Wayne Gacy. Only killed boys. Handcuffed them because he couldn't take them in a fight. He had to trick them. He's disgusting, and he's total lame-o, right? And then I read a book about this kid who wrote John Wayne Gacy letters in jail. And John Wayne Gacy, up until the electric chair, was still trying to groom young men. So yeah, he's disgusting. Ted Bundy, just because he's so popular, just because I'm a hipster, when it comes to serial killers, he's so popular. And again, his gimmick was just attacking sleeping women or women who were helping him. Like, just, again, scum of the earth. How come people aren't jumping in? Like, I covered that story about that ninja who attacked that military base. That's dope. I'm not saying that servicemen and women should be attacked by ninjas, but that guy had guts. So John Wayne Gacy's the worst. Number 2 is Ted Bundy. Ooh, who would number 3 be? I would have to say Gene Coral. Gene Coral, and he's probably he's the lamest serial killer, and he's also probably the most obscure. He happened around the same time that John Wayne Gacy was popping off, and his target were kids, and that's honestly, even thinking about things makes me mad. It really, his crime. Like, I've read books about him. I think I've only read one book, and then I read a couple articles about him as well, because I hadn't heard of the guy. He's so disgusting, so perverted. He was actually killed by one of his fellow serial killers. One of the accomplices he was with shot him because he tried killing a girl, but this guy had already killed and raped a bunch of boys. It was disgusting. Anyways, so lamest, to me, a lame serial killer is someone, it's all of them, because they don't fight, right? They're always tricking them. They're getting them in handcuffs and doing lame stuff to them. Thanks for riling me up, Rudy. I could probably name another 3, but let's see. Cantillion's asked, I know you don't want to discuss them, rightfully so, but which political conspiracy theory would you ever discuss because it's so interesting? That's an interesting one, because when we do cover political conspiracy theories, they tend to be the funnier ones, like is Donald Trump a time traveler? And then, you know, all the stuff with Real Raw News and Hillary Clinton being taken to Guantanamo Bay and all that stuff. You know, I have a theory. I think I already know the answer to it. Is that if I'm a movie studio, and I make a big Western, I make a Western film and it is a huge hit, and then I decide to make another film and it's a Western and it's a huge hit, other movie studios will start making Westerns. That's generally how it works out. Horror movies are pretty timeless, but you'll have a studio make The Conjuring, and then all of a sudden all these other movie studios, because you have a movie that costs $10 million, makes $200 million. We saw that with independent films like Pulp Fiction. All of a sudden people are like, oh, let's find if we can 10 Things to Do in Denver When We're Dead, or Revolver. You know, we'll get all these other independent films. Thursday. Thursday's a great film, but we'll get all these other independent films. This is what I can't figure out. I have a news division. It's called CNN, the #1 name in news. But our ratings are not the #1 ratings. The #1 news channel is Fox. And what I can't find out, we're talking cable, network is still bigger, but what I can't figure out, if I ran CNN, why aren't I trying to have the best channel possible? In ratings sense. If I was head of CNN, or MSNBC, I don't understand why they're not going, wait a second, the #1 network has this type of programming on it, let's copy them. I don't get that. I don't get it if it's because the people who run those networks ideologically go, I don't care how much money I make, I don't want to have that viewpoint. Or is that controlled opposition? Is that controlled opposition? I have a lot of friends who believe that mainstream media is all of it, CNN, MSNBC, is too conservative. They're not telling the truth. And I have a lot of friends who are conservative who say they don't even watch CNN, MSNBC, they're liberal, leftist viewpoint. But if you are a leftist, then it's corporate media. It doesn't even tell you the truth. So I don't know if CNN and Fox News and MSNBC are controlled opposition. And that's funny because that's going back to that whole idea of one person running everything. But I think you could easily have, what I don't understand is if I was the head of CNN, I'd go, we are getting killed in the ratings by Fox. Let's start doing what Fox does. If conservative news is more popular, let's do that. And they don't. They're actually losing money, not chasing the trends. So I find that weird. I don't know if there's anything to it. I don't know if it's a political conspiracy theory or a conspiracy theory at all. My suggestion is the people who run those networks don't care. Probably doesn't make a lot of money anyways. They probably have like CNN, I think, is run by Warner Media or Viacom or something like that. So they really don't care. And that is, they don't want it. But yeah, so again, if I had a movie studio that started pumping out movies that were huge hits, like superhero movies, right? One studio made superhero movies, and then people were trying to make Bloodshot starring Vin Diesel. What? No one's gonna watch that. No one did. And then Cantillion's has a second question here. Which of the classic mainstream theories do I believe? Roswell, JFK. I have questions about, I believe that we landed on the moon. I find it really weird that every moon landing took place during one presidency and we've never gone back. I think I don't necessarily ask me what conspiracy theories I believe. I have questions about things like the moon landing. When I found that out, when I found that detail out about the moon landing, I go, wait, what? Every moon landing happened during the Nixon presidency. One of the most hated presidents, by the way, until recently. He was the only one who put people on the moon. There has to be something to that. There has to be something to that. No one stepped on the moon until he became president, and since he's left, we've never been back. There's a reason for that, and I don't know what it is. I totally don't know what it is. So I think that's super interesting. JFK, I think, was probably killed by, I mean, that's one that I was never super into. Roswell, Roswell, the more I look into it, the fishier it gets, as far as we don't even know the exact date of the crash. There's like a 2-week time period when it could, you know, you always see in the movies or you hear about it was this dramatic thing. No, like some guy saw a fireball, and then 2 weeks later they go out and they find this debris somewhere, and it wasn't reported in the news for a while. The first story to really break it, after the initial reporting, it wasn't talked about again for another 10 or 15 years. We talked about it on the show, like there's some fishy stuff. That was a long enough time for the mythology to kind of build, so not really, but I do have questions about Roswell. Something probably crashed, I don't know what it was. Let's see here. Looking at some other stuff. And then Cantillion's saying lived in Monaco. Yeah, rich people, I mean, they are people too. I think they just kind of get bored. Well, I think a lot of it is, we're talking about the crazy art again. I think a lot of it is just them. Khaki Q, thank you for the donation. I just saw that pop up. I really, really appreciate that, my friend. Thank you. I was so glad I saw that. And you know what, guys? I gotta give you guys props because we don't have mods or nothing for this. You guys are such a great group of friends, man. Yeah, this is awesome. Like, dude, did I get lost here? I think I was. Sorry, I was trying to. Oh no, okay, that was further down. The All Olympics says, following along with the Alex Jones water stuff, wonder if you've ever looked into the testosterone levels of modern men. I have not. I would imagine there's a difference just because you know, a big part of it, here's always the thing, like, is it a conspiracy or is it just human negligence? I know, like, estrogen in the water supply is a lot higher because of birth control. And women are urinating out estrogen. I mean, the science, I may not have a good grip on the science, but that is the idea of what's going on. And so, yeah, it would totally make sense if testosterone levels go down. Now, how does it affect? Like, here's the question, are estrogen levels in the water higher? Probably. Is it causing long-term health effects? I think it's the question. Is it causing psychological health effects? Is it causing physical health effects? If it is, that's something, like, you know, because it can be minutely higher, or it could have, you know, it could definitely be affecting as well, and that's totally different. Rudy Jazz, I used to find serial killers so cool. I think everyone goes through that. I think because there is something about them that they're different, and I think people go into a mass kill, and not everyone, right? But I think when you're into, like, creepy stuff, I don't necessarily know. I remember, like, I think when I was a kid, when you hear about serial killers, you hear about them on the news in the 80s, it was the golden age of the serial killers. We were fully aware of, like, the Manson family, stuff like that. I think here's my thing, actually. I think it's because other people are afraid of them, and that makes them feel powerful. But I think as you get older, like Jazz was saying, the atheist phase, when they were 12, you go out, they're just a bunch of losers who couldn't have anything going on. Jacob, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. And Jonathan, yeah, has mentioned in the book "Programmed to Kill." A lot of people have mentioned that book. It's a book, if I remember correctly, that kind of ties together serial killers with a global plot. It's not fiction. I mean, I don't know how true it is, but it's a nonfiction book. It's putting that theory together. Kill Eden. Have I heard about the 4chan green text about the guy astral projecting underground and finding 3 tribes of underground slave races? That sounds vaguely familiar. That sounds vaguely that is going on. Yeah, and Jonathan says that that book is an offshoot of the MK Ultra thing. Yeah, the slave. I think I've seen that. I think I've seen that green copy pasta, yeah, about the people. And I remember reading it, and it's funny because if that was the one, it might not have been that one, it might have been another one about a guy who was saying that there were these underground communities, and then it just kind of ended. And I was like, oh man, like, didn't there be like a battle? Like,